So I'm really your moderator or host, the CEO of Topco Media. Luckily, I'm not the expert, so I can ask the intriguing questions as maybe some of you have. So just an agenda for today. It's an intro about Topco, why we're doing this Africa Tech Week, why is it important, and then introduce Hans just briefly. I think if you've been to the previous sessions, you would know that he's an expert, not just in South Africa or Africa, but actually globally. He has expertise in working with organizations like BMW, the United Nations, and numerous banks in Europe. So, you're really talking to a guru here. And then obviously Peter Ukamp, who's joining us for the first time, is the CEO of Bluestream. He's not a data scientist, but he is a research expert, market research expert. So we're going to be doing some polls, some Q&As. We really want you guys to get involved. So please participate. So just briefly, what Topco, our purpose is to create a trusted network of top companies, startups, policymakers, academia, and decision makers. And really, we're trying to bring you expertise and the best experts to help you in your business. And that's why I think we've partnered with Hans and what Data Tech is doing to show you what the top companies are doing. So this is some of the other products that we have: Vision 2030, Top Women, Top Empowerment, Top 500, Future of HR. So, we really looking at strategically how we can help businesses. Africa Tech Week is quite interesting. I think that, with transformation, certainly with COVID coming, we looked at Africa Tech Week 2 years ago, and we saw that there's an opportunity for Africa to transform the world. And so really that's our purpose, is what are the things that's happening with Africa that can transform the world? And obviously one of them is technology. And so this conversation is really important. Venture Burn mentioned us as one of the top tech events of the year for startups. So we're going to be going virtual with that event. Digital transformation. So what are the critical areas that we're seeing in terms of digital transformation, especially with COVID? Well, obviously one's connectivity. And if you're not connected to this, you can see why. Culture of innovation is really important. So how are you changing your culture within the organization? And that also means how do you look at bureaucracy? Because that certainly is a problem. And the culture of your people, how they work in this new way. So data is the new commodity. It's the new gold. And I think you're going to see that more and more. And that's why Hans is really here, as to how do you manage your data? How do you extract information from your data? And that should be improving your customer experience, because that is critical. We are seeing customer experience being more important, but obviously linked to that is security, securing your data, as well as securing your networks and your information. So as an overview, CIOs are seeing as a top priority connectivity. But I think, what we're also seeing is that it's not just about being compliant. What we're seeing is that what's important is that you are promoting best practice and being customer centric. And we're seeing reputation management is even more important than legal requirements. So, with the POPI Act coming and coming very quickly now, it's important that you understand what those legal requirements are, but obviously it's more important that your customers and your stakeholders make sure that you're managing your data in a respectable and honest way. So being seen as a trusted company, secure information is critical. Okay, here we go. So just quickly introducing our speakers again. Hans, who is the expert, he says you can ask him any question. In fact, he doesn't want us to brief him on the questions because he enjoys the challenge of answering these things. He's been in this game for over 20 years, helping some of the biggest companies in the world. So he really does have intriguing insights, and we're going to go through that. And it's really trying to get those insights and those examples from him. And we'd challenge you to do the same. Really he's able to take what he knows and really apply it. And so in a simple format, so most of us can really understand this and how to apply it in our businesses. And that's critical. So this is an opportunity to work with a real international expert. So Peter obviously is the CEO of Bluestream Group, and obviously he does market research. But more than that, he's trying to help you in your business future-proof it in terms of what innovations and what strategies to implement and align within your business. And he's done a lot of work with the University of Stellenbosch implementing the innovation program. I think they got funding for about 100 million Rand for that program. So he really does have his fingers on the pulse in terms of South Africa, how he can help organizations with their strategy in terms of future-proofing their businesses. So we're also going to be doing some polls that will be popping up. You can see them. Give us your feedback. It's really important. And we'll give you that learnings back afterwards. Obviously, what we're really wanting you to get from today is how AI can help and can be used for your business. So keep that in your mind, how it can be used for your business to either grow, save money, or be more productive. Those three things are critical. What's possible and what's not, developing a strategy to obtain the data necessary, AI and data at the core of your business strategy. If it's not at the core of your business strategy, you're going to be losing out in terms of either paying too much, unrealized revenue, or less productive. So we also got some Q&As with the panelists. It's really important. I think it's great for you that you get a chance to speak to these experts, and they're really busy people. So it gives you a chance to do that. My only question is to keep it positive. Okay. So this is a positive and free program. Let's keep it that way. For the last 3 programs, it's been very positive. So just tell you a little bit about Africa Tech Week. We're going virtual. It's on the 28th and 29th of October. Really exciting for us. We've done one virtual event. It was very, very successful. And the awards on the 29th of October. So, you know, implement your strategies and get involved. So that's me. What I'd like to do now is to hand over to Hans. And he's got a presentation that he's going to present. So over to you, Hans. Thank you.
So hello, good morning, everybody. Good to seeing you here. Thank you for showing up. I think this is the biggest webinar we had so far. I hope we are okay on sound quality. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, because I'm sitting here at the small airport. So in case we got some noise in the background, it's just starting airplanes. So sorry for that. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Good to seeing you here. My name is Hans-Jürgen Schönig. Just call me Hans, it's easier. And I've been in professional data engineering for over 20 years. We're operating worldwide. We're doing basically database work. We've done so for over 20 years. We are an international team of people. So our headquarters is here in Europe, in Austria. We have a branch in the Nordics. We have a branch in Poland, Switzerland, Uruguay, and also in Africa, especially in Mauritius and in South Africa. So we're serving the whole of Africa from South Africa, basically. And the topic of the day is basically how you can use AI, what is possible, how to go about it, how to get into that, etc. So to briefly finalize some short introduction of the company, we have a couple of clients you might know, like Amazon, BMW, Skype, Spar, Porsche, Siemens, Alcatel, Vodafone, just name me an industry and we can give you a customer we've been working for most likely many, many years. So this is basically what we're doing, data science and database development. So let's get started with AI. So the question is, why would anybody want to use machine learning, data science, whatever you want to call it? So why would you really want to do that? Of course, everybody wants to do it because everybody else wants to do it. But what are really the core reasons for your business in order to get started, in order to be productive, in order to get something useful done? So the core question is, why machine learning? And let me just show you a slide which I have recently found on the internet and which I found quite interesting. So what you see on the left-hand side is the top companies as of 2006. What you see is ExxonMobil, which is an oil company. You see General Electric, which is doing everything from refrigerators to the nuclear bombs. There's Citigroup, there is BP, there's Royal Dutch, right? So those were the top companies as of 2006. So let's take a look at 2016, which is barely 10 years later. And the only oil company that is left, or the only traditional company that is left on this list, is ExxonMobil. And as you can see, they decreased in value. So everybody else was booming, everybody else, and Exxon actually decreased in value. And all of those companies on the right-hand side, apart from Exxon, are data-driven companies. Apple, huge data thing. Alphabet, which is Google, huge data thing. Microsoft, data only. Amazon, data only with a little bit of logistics, right? Facebook, data only. So what you can see is that within the time span of 10 years, that's basically what it takes to build a factory, if you want to put it on some grassland, something like that. Within 10 years, the whole thing was transformed. So if you take a look at 2020, top companies, top brands, 2020, it's Amazon, data, Google, data, Apple, data, Microsoft, data, Samsung, it's also IT, data. It's Walmart is the only one, but we're talking about brand value here. And even Walmart is one of the first company that basically started to use data science to optimize how things are put on the shelves and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say is everybody who succeeded in the last 10, 15 years was basically a data-driven company. I mean, Amazon is doing logistics, but they're not doing logistics the traditional way by just doing manual stuff. They're doing logistics in the most data-aware way possible. Nothing is random there, you know? No prices are random, no product recommendations are random, supply chain is not random. So this is all data-driven decisions. And this is what I want you to be aware of. So if we look ahead 10 more years, 2030, do you expect the oil companies to come back? Do you expect the steel companies to overtake Google, actually? And I would say, my humble judgment, I would say, no, it's going to be at least as valuable as it is today, and it's certainly not going to decline. So data is everywhere, you can see it, and digitalization is moving forward, especially during COVID times, because it's harder and harder to do the tangible business, you know? You cannot deliver anymore, it's just harder, it's slower. Google can build any kind of application faster than somebody else can build apartments. So by definition, a data-driven process is always faster than a tangible process where you have tangible goods, right? So this is, I just wanted to be aware of those two slides, the importance of data in a very short time span. So it's really a revolution. It's not just evolution, it's revolution. It's like introduction of the steam engine. It's like introduction of the combustion engine. It's like the introduction of the wheel or the introduction of fire. So data is a revolution. And if you're not part of that, you're on the losing side of the trade, right? So let's see what it means. The way I see it is data is really the new oil, the new raw material, the new, as I would say, the new raw material commodity, the prime commodity. And if we look at the sheer volume of data that is stored worldwide, what you see is simply an exponential trend. So within 10 years, I would say the amount of data has gone up tenfold. And if we extrapolate that curve, it's certainly not going to be less. I mean, are you going to upload more multimedia on Facebook? Are you gonna upload more high quality data? Or are you gonna go back to analog cameras? You're not gonna go back to analog cameras, do you? You're not gonna go back to paper in favor of credit cards. You know, you're not gonna do that. It's rather gonna be some new card technology, some new fingerprint or anything, but it's certainly not going to go back for to the traditional way things work. That's not going to happen. Something is going to change. A lot of stuff has changed already. So the question is, being aware of this scenario, how can we reach the promised land? So obviously there is something happening. Obviously there is the need to adapt. But the question is, how can we get there? How can the average company, big or small, how can a company adapt to this trend, and how can we get there, right? So preparing for success, I think that's a reasonable assumption that if you're going for new technology, even to optimize old business, it's not only about having the most super sexy new business. It's also about improving your traditional business. I mean, real estate is not going to go away. Retail is not going to go away. The question is just, how is retail going to happen? How is real estate going to happen? How is construction going to happen? And how is IT going to happen? So it's not just, of course, the digital companies are going to take over, but that does not mean that the rest has no potential. There's a lot of potential in the rest also. You just have to get it right. So first thing you have to do, think about data, data-centric approach, data-driven approach, be realistic. And point number 3 is something that is really on my heart. That's a personal thing. Expect the unexpected, because every time we handled the client in this area of AI, something happened which nobody predicted. Something popped up, and I'm going to give you some examples of what's going on there. And at the end of the day, think like the end user. There is no point in having an AI solution just because you have an AI solution. The key question is always, where is the value? How can we show value to the customer? How can we produce value for your business? That's the whole purpose why we do that. Amazon is not doing AI because it's cool. They are doing AI because there's a benefit to that. There's real value in the real world. And this is what I want to focus on here as part of this presentation. So let's move on. Think about data and things to avoid. I was talking to the company here in Europe the other day, not about AI, but about some other stuff. And what they did is they stored positions of things and vehicles. And they just stored the most recent position, which means they deleted the history. They just updated where is the thing, where is the thing, where is the thing, but they actually deleted the history. And I told them, guys, you just deleted data worth €1 billion. You just blew it up. And the reason why they did it was because nobody was willing to pay for the storage. And I told them, I'm going to store the data for free. Just give it to me, right? Just give me the data, whatever it is, just I take care of storage. I'll go to the hardware store, get some hard drives, but get me the fucking data, right? So those guys literally destroyed value, right? So what you should you will need it for something you don't even see yet. And trust me, if you have tracking data for 1 million vehicles, you can do a lot of stuff with that. Just don't throw it away because you're not prepared to buy 10 hard drives, or there is no cost center for purchasing 10 hard drives. You know what I mean? So first thing to avoid, do not destroy your data. And the second most important thing I want to point out is do not destroy your data. And to make it clear, the third thing I want to stress is do not destroy your data. Keep it, make history. So the takeaways, keep your data. You might need it later. Once you deleted it, you cannot recover it. You cannot bring it back. You have destroyed the value. You have literally burned assets. Nobody would burn a forest for fun, but people destroy data because they got the feeling that whatever, right? So keep it, it's valuable. And the most important stuff is it's about data. There is no such thing as machine learning without data. We talked to quite a large pharma company some time ago, and they said, we want to do machine learning for whatever. And I asked them, how much data do you have? And the guy showed me an Excel sheet with 700 rows. And I told him, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to count it, or do you want to see how many male and female? That's not AI. You cannot do anything of value with 700 rows. That's not going to happen. So it's a data-centric thing. The more you got, the better. The higher quality you got, the better. So that's super important. And that's a helicopter behind me. So give me 10 seconds. So, sorry. So, And once you have engaged in this journey of using data, there is one thing I really want to stress, and that is expect the unexpected. And let me give you a couple of examples what expecting the unexpected literally means. Imagine you got elevators, right? Just elevators in a building, huge office building. And a guy is analyzing this movement, those movements of those elevators, because what they want to do is they wanted to figure out when is the escalator going to break, right? So when is the thing broken? Can we figure out when the escalator breaks? Because you don't want those things to be broken, let's say when there's a conference, when your hotel is fully booked. So you want this thing to work, so you want to figure out when is it gonna break, right? So can we predict failure? And what they figured out is that out of those movements of the escalator, they could predict with reasonable odds that somebody is going to leave his office building or his flat. So they knew in advance, before the guy quit his office, that there's going to be vacant space up there at some point. So if we're talking about 1,000 offices or 1,000 apartments, imagine you can reduce the time those things are empty by 10%. I mean, that's a major thing. That's going to boost revenue 2-3%, right? For free, just because you know that something is going to happen. You can advertise earlier, you can react, you can call the guy and say, hey, is everything fine? If you want something, maybe we can bargain on a discount, whatever there is. But you know with reasonable odds that something has to happen. And this translates into real world revenue. It's not just some virtual thing that you now know that the sun is shining. That's not the point. You can really translate it into real world cash value. And that's what I meant by unexpected. Nobody was searching for a correlation between elevators and people leaving their office space. Nobody's searching for that, definitely. The second thing we saw, also by chance, is they analyzed the tracks for farming, and they figured out that they could increase crop yield, but I think the number was 3%, by just plowing into different direction. So imagine you're plowing north to south, because that's how the roads are. And but if you plow east to west, you're going to get 3% more. So why not go east to west? You know, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to do that. But you have to know it. You have to professionally approach the data, look for patterns. It's a recurring process. It's not a one-time thing. Also, what we saw is people going for hotel prices. They wanted to set prices for hotels in order to optimize revenue. And what they figured out is that the reason a certain price is set by an owner is that the neighbor is setting the same price. So they're not going for the best price that optimizes revenue. They're simply looking at what the neighbor does. So imagine, again, you're renting out 100 rooms a day. You're doing it 300 days a year. Suppose you can improve revenue by just 5%, right? Next thing I want to stress is think like the end user. The user does not care if you're using AI, if you're still carving on stone, if you're writing on papyrus. They don't care. Why does everybody buy at Amazon? The reason is it's easy. It knows exactly what you want, and the thing is there tomorrow, right? So the value there is not in. Can you hear me still, Rolf?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a helicopter again. Sorry.
It's me, Ralph. So one of the things that we discussed yesterday, Peter and I, which was quite interesting, was about that rental and the algorithms. And you were saying that the biggest predictor of pricing or rentals is the competition. But then we discussed, well, then how do you change that?
Well, the point is, it's not the competition, it's the neighbor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it was a global thing, like all the hotels in the city, that would be one thing, but it's literally the neighbor.
Yeah.
So if you know you're going to be full, you know your neighbor is going to be full, you can charge more. You don't have to copy the price. You might be able to set a higher one.
Yeah.
So
but I think we discussed yesterday that you need to be looking at how you add value That's the biggest predictor. You can't be comparing with your neighbor all the time.
Exactly. If everybody does the same, how can you get an edge, right?
Yeah.
How can you get an edge if everybody earns 0 and you're the only one who earns 10 Rand? In the long run, you're going to kill everybody else, right?
Yeah.
That's the point.
If you look at the winning businesses, it's always they have a very strong differentiator. So always everybody is looking at what will appeal to the biggest group in the market that can afford it, that actually makes you different. So if they talk to their neighbor, they have to know why they buy from you and not from the other provider, because you have to look as somebody that takes sensible decisions. So if the data is there to support that, obviously you can build better marketing plans, you can target clients more specifically, and you can appeal to market segments where nobody else see a market segment due to the data.
Absolutely. So you can create new market segments, you can optimize the existing ones, you can just reduce your cost, you can reduce your workload, you can increase customer satisfaction, you can reduce failure, you can predict failure, you can avoid whatever you want, right? So insight, knowing what's going on, is the raw material for a clever decision.
Yeah.
How can you make a decision if you don't know anything, right?
Now,
So
we have a statement in Bluestream that we use: insight drives growth. Insight drives growth, because where's the quality of good decisions coming from? It's good insights.
yes,
So
absolutely.
the smaller your blind spot, the better your strategic decision could be.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a couple of clients who didn't even know what they could do. You know, that's the point. So they couldn't make a decision because they didn't even know what to look for. So it's very basic, basically.
And I think you were saying as well yesterday when we were chatting, or the day before, really around how a lot of products have become commodities almost now. It's
Yes.
almost everything's been trading because of the e-commerce, because of access to information. What everybody's looking for is the cheapest price. And so now you need to differentiate yourself. And so having this data, this insight in terms of personalizing your product offering and having something different to everybody else, this data, this insight is the most critical reason to then add value in other ways.
Yeah, if you look at the buying behavior of the younger generation, they actually go and do research on the web before they buy. So they're also rich in data. They're also looking for understanding before they make the buying decision. So as an organization that have something to offer, you must also be top on information. So many products sells with intelligent information today, where in the past it was just pushing product. Today, it's more on the solution side of things, because people understand the context in which they buy better.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have some of the youngsters working in the company. I think they even forgot there is something called a shop where you can go and look at things physically. There is such a thing as a shop where you go and see a real digital camera on the shelves, right? They've never seen that before. It's like an alien technology, you know? Why would you put this camera on the shelf? Why would anybody do that, you know? So what can be done with AI? I've picked out a couple of important things which I consider to be, let's say, showcases. First thing is fraud detection, image processing, dynamic pricing, intelligent agents, text mining, product recommendations, and predictive maintenance. And I'm going to show you some examples all the way through the presentation so they can see a picture or maybe give you some inspiration what is feasible and what is not, right? So the classical thing, first thing is fraud detection. Classical use case. So if you are South African and you're sending some money to your neighbor, you're sending some money to Cape Town, you're sending some money to Durban, you purchase something from Botswana, you purchase something from Zimbabwe, all of a sudden money goes to the South Pacific every week on a regular basis. You know what I mean? That's not something that should happen. So fraud detection is mostly about anomaly detection. so that that people can basically see, okay, there is something wrong in the data, and basically prevent behavior. A friend of mine was working in a bank in Europe, and there was a guy who was working on stock trading, security trading, and he was in the department where all the critical stuff was handled. So the non-standard stuff, when something failed, when there was a dispute, stuff like that. And he basically stole the bank €1 million, and the bank didn't notice. German government fraud detection noticed. The German central bank noticed, because every week a fixed amount went into a bank account that had no other movements in terms of transfers, right? So they noticed. Not even the bank noticed, to the tune of €1 million. The German central bank noticed, right? Can you imagine somebody stealing €1 million and it just vaporizes? You know what I mean? So it's not only external fraud, it's also internal fraud, right? And this is, I read some statistics that internal fraud is somewhere between 60 and 80% of total fraud. Why would you break into a bank if you can work there, right? Why do you want to blow up the safe if you can just have the key, you know? So that's how it works, basically. The second thing is image processing. The image processing thing is also becoming more and more important. The first thing you could do is you could maybe use detect items like people. You could detect cars, reading license plates. I mean, back in the old days, the good old days when people like me were speeding like crazy on the highway, you saw a policeman, you slowed down, you passed the guy, and then right foot again, right? So just speed up again. Now they have something called section control, where you pass through a little radar and the camera, they read your license plate. They're gonna do this every 10 kilometers and send you the speeding ticket automatically. How horrible is that? I mean, that's terrorism, you know, that's modern terrorism. But it's actually image recognition, reading a license plate, and combining those technologies, right? Finding cars, they also use it for car theft, right? This car has passed here, etc., right? Also, you can use image recognition to find environmental things, just see what's on things, finding similar images, etc. So there's a huge area of image processing in science, or also for private use, right? And also for government use, which is speeding tickets, which is one of the sad things, I would say.
So Hans, I mean, one of the things in South Africa is obviously crime and petty crime. And so we're seeing more cameras. Do you see that having a reduction in crime generally? Do you see countries with high crime statistics using AI in terms of their police and security, reducing crime substantially? And
what they do is they use it. They move it. So crime is usually not going to go away. I'll give you an example. During the refugee crisis in Europe, you know, when all the Syrians walked up, there was no copper theft anymore because they just changed industry. So what the government tries to do is, they know that crime can only be avoided to some extent. It's enough if you channel it. You don't want your handbag to be stolen in the tourist area. Please do it somewhere else. You know what I mean? You're not gonna reduce the number of drug addicts, but don't make them sit in Main Square on the train station, right? So it's one component is avoiding. A second component is moving to less relevant areas. Don't use this underground station, use the next one, right?
But I also heard that there was some statistics done in some research around when you move crime, it reduces as well because people get into different habits.
Yeah, that's very likely. That's certainly something I could envision. I haven't seen any hard data. I just know from some guys at the police, which are doing some criminal investigations, that they try to channel it, and maybe it also leads to a reduction. Maybe you know more about that, but perfectly feasible. Perfectly feasible. So dynamic pricing, I think this is something, if you're really doing this at scale, that is super interesting. And let me just focus on one thing. Suppose you have a certain margin. Suppose you have a certain margin and you can charge 10% more for the same product. Your bottom line is not going to go up 10%. Your bottom line is going to go up 20, 30, 40, 50%. Right? Because if you sell something for 100 Rand, which costs 90 to make, you make 10 Rand profit. If you can sell it for 110, you doubled your profit, right? So a very small change in price to make it more efficient can have a huge impact on your bottom line, right? If you double your prices, profits are going to go up 8 times maybe, right? So there's huge leverage in there. So if you can just be a little bit better, right, you won. Let me give you an example. If you have a gas station, basically the gross profit on gasoline per liter in all of Europe is 1 euro cent. The gross profit of the gas station is 1 cent. If you manage to make the guy buy a chewing gum, the margin is 50 times higher, right? So try to sell him a chewing gum instead of gasoline, or in addition to gasoline. How can we do that, right? So the business model of a gas station is the chewing gum, or the candy, or the cigarette. It's the gasoline is not the main thing that drives profit. So how can you optimize the products you're selling? How can you do that, right? So that's also one market here. The second thing, which is becoming more and more popular, is intelligent agents. Piper Aircraft announced, I think 2 months ago, that they have auto-landing airplanes. So if the pilot dies, the thing is going to land on its own. I mean, that's something of value, right? So if you sell an airplane, and if you can tell them, okay, guys, if something goes wrong, we're going to land the thing, right? You can charge for that, but you only make the software once, and you sell it all over again, right? And you have good reputation, you're saving lives, you're selling more, whatever. And this intelligent agent, I've copied some images from a research paper I found the other day. And some researchers, basically you see a couple of characters on those images. And what they're doing is they're playing hide and seek. So they're on a piece of land, and they got a couple of devices. You see some blocks, some walls, something like that. And they trained agents to basically play hide and seek the most efficient way possible. And what happened is that those guys broke the world. They managed to escape the world, right? So I think that if you put one of those yellow blocks on top of the wall, there's a bug in the world, and they managed to escape the world. They basically always won, right? So it's not like they're playing hide and seek. Actually, the AI broke the environment, because it was so good, right? And why do you need an agent? You can fly a helicopter, you can drive a car, you can land an airplane, you can respond to customer complaints, right? Or if you are in IT, imagine you're running a server and it's approaching 90% full, right? Traditionally, the administrator goes in and adds more space and more memory, and that's it. I mean, why do you need a human to add memory if something is full? Why would you do that? It's just too expensive. You cannot do this on 1 million servers. It's totally pointless. It's wasting resources. Right? So intelligent agents, that could be support for blind people, that could be purchasing assistants, that could be driving assistants, that could be automatic lawn mowers, whatever it might be, right? So there's a huge potential in automated agents, because again, you train the agent once, it's going to last for a while, right? Humans have the tendency to need food next day, right? And food the next day. Humans have recurring costs. That's a problem, right? Agents have some initial costs, but then the cost of per day is going to be very low, right? Obviously. Any questions? So one more. Let's come to one of my favorites, which is product recommendations. If
Go back quickly.
Yes.
One quickly. So we saw in the, I think we saw in the States, in America, where there's something like 30% of people prosecuted for crimes are wrongly prosecuted. And what they did is they took all the data and they linked both the data, the history, and then they linked the facial recognition, and they predicted the people being guilty or innocent based on the previous evidence of the crimes they had produced before and where they were. And they were able to predict by, I think, 95% accuracy versus 70% from the judges of if someone was innocent or guilty.
Yes,
and so what they're doing now is they're using AI to help the judges to ask better questions using that data set. But it's AI with this data set is helping in terms of wrongful, reducing wrongful convictions, but also improving those people who were wrong to find better evidence.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I just had saw a legal case here, and the amount of paper was 500,000 pages. I think some bank went bankrupt, and they just took everything they could and found 500,000 pages. How can any group of humans, I'm not talking about a single person anymore, but imagine I'm going to give you 500,000 pages, unlimited budget, but you have to process it with humans. I mean, that's totally unfeasible. Forget it. No way. Even with unlimited finance, no way. You know what I mean? So you need, in some cases, some technical assistance. Which leads me to product recommendations. Suppose you're selling 100,000 products, which is not an unreasonable number. I think I remember some very large department store selling 120,000 in a store, single thing. How can you manually tag them? How can you efficiently price them? How can you efficiently handle the stocks, etc.? How can you do that? Forget it, right? A data-driven approach, automation, is going to beat humans by a wide margin. First of all, machines don't join the labor unions. They don't go out drinking and go on sick leave the next day. They don't complain. They don't basically just quit their job. Machines have a couple of advantages, and the scale, you can add them. If you're looking for 50,000 people packing up cigarettes manually, where are you going to take them? You know what I mean? You have to find them, right? Machines are more easy. They scale better. You can just add more, add less, right? And for product recommendations, that's interesting because if you just, let's say you purchase a dog, right? What do you need? You need food. You need a place to rest. You need a toy. You need, I don't know what, right? How would you, if you have 100,000 products and suppose you need 10 recommendations for each product, that makes 1 million entries. So sit somebody on a chair and make him type in 1 million recommendations. That's not going to work. You have to do it in an automated way. And again, if you can boost profits, if you can boost margin by 10%, but just having a more intelligent recommendation, you're going to boost profits by 50%, 30%, 70%. And this is why Amazon and Microsoft just won. That's it. That's the reason, right? They just managed to charge better, more efficiently, like anything else. Right?
Hans, there's for me, there's an interesting challenge. If you look at a lot of the professional careers, like vets, doctors, lawyers, and so on, many of this type of businesses don't have a history, don't have a good feasibility if the owner wants to sell or exit that business, because there's no value. Everything is linked to the owner personal effort. Now, if we can have a project and maybe you can have a few ideas what can you automate? Where can you use AI in a veg practice so it makes it scalable and it actually builds value so that eventually you can sell a system to the next owner? If we can talk about that a little bit.
There are certainly, I've seen some issues in medicine where the machine predicted ways more accurately what's wrong with the guy. Because a doctor is always biased, you know. If 10 patients came in with the flu and the 11th patient comes in with a headache, of course patient number 11 also is going to have the flu, right? Even if it's a copper poisoning thing, you know what I mean? So I saw some medical research which shows that the machine was more predictable. The problem with the machine was it was better, but people didn't trust it. I want to speak to a human, but I think that this bias is going to go away at some point. The young generation knows that Netflix is going to make a nice recommendation. They know that Apple is going to make them, you know, Siri to whatever, you know what I mean? So I think that that's going to change over time. It's not so much a technical thing. I would say it's more of a social thing also.
Yeah.
Right? I found a picture here for you, and it shows a wind turbine blowing up. Those things here, you can see on the right, the new ones are in the area of 2.5 megawatt peak performance. So suppose you're producing 2.5 megawatts, something breaks, and you have to stop the thing. All the energy in the plates is going to be translated or transformed to heat. This thing is gonna explode. If you land an airliner and if you abort the takeoff, the regulation says the thing must not burn, and I said burn, for I think 30 or 60 seconds. So it's not like you start an airliner, you abort the takeoff and, oh, that was nice. No, the regulation says you are not allowed to burn, physically burn in 30 or 60 seconds. So imagine what happens with a wind turbine if you just stop it at full speed. The thing is gonna explode from heat. So the concept of predictive maintenance is that you try to predict when something goes wrong, right? So in case of a wind turbine, you use this metal rods, I don't know how you call it in English, you know, this turning thing, and you measure the vibrations, and out of this time series of those vibrations of the wind turbine, you can predict that the thing is gonna fail, right? So you can do the maintenance before the thing explodes, because maintenance is cheap. Blowing up a wind turbine is expensive, right? So do everything you can to not make it blow up. So that's classical predictive maintenance. What's going to break when, right?
I think, Hans, we must introduce you to Eskom in South Africa.
Yes, I know, the electricity company, right?
Yeah, they definitely, I think, have a big problem with predictive maintenance if you look at the history.
I can imagine. I was recently talking to somebody making water plants. They're making small water plants, I think up to 100 kilowatts or something. And they told me that in Guatemala, they're planning for 12 power outages per day. So that's the expectation. And the thing is, if you could just sell electricity more wisely, for example, if you have a water power plant, you have a certain amount of water. You can produce a certain amount of energy. The question is, when do you produce it?
No.
Are you going to produce it at night when everybody is asleep? Or are you going to produce it during the day when everybody is driving his electric car or doing whatever? When are you going to do that? And they managed to improve things by 0.5%, right? Let's do the math. With one water plant near where I live, it's 136 megawatts. 0.5% for 20 years. That's millions for free, right? So why does anybody discuss the price of the consultant if the price tag is going to be millions over years for free, just by selling it 2 hours later? You know what I mean? It's not like some magic. It's just, don't release the water now, do it 20 minutes later. Because the sun is going to shine and everybody's going to produce solar, right?
Yeah.
So it's massive, it's millions. A friend of mine was working on optimization for coal-fired plants, and they managed to reduce coal consumption by 1%, right? And they are firing up, so they're burning 60 train loads a day. So 1% is half a wagon every day, just floating out the chimney. You know what I mean? So it's huge leverage.
So Hans, I know that we spoke also yesterday, and Peter, as a market researcher, he's always looking for data to give back to his customers and to change behaviors, buying behaviors and people's behaviors. And we were talking about your holiday, your excursion, your last time you were in South Africa, and
Yes.
how changing questions to find out information, to gather this data by asking open-ended questions, it really helps. Then the AI can then take that data from all its capacities. I don't know if you want to talk about that quickly.
Hans is muted.
You're on mute, Hans. So we
Oh, sorry.
no worries.
Sorry, my fault. There's a concept of text mining. So imagine you want to improve customer service. And what are you going to do? You ask them, did you like our service? 1 to 10. And they say it's 3 out of 10. And I'm going to ask you, I'm telling you, your service is 3 out of 10. How are you going to improve? What are you going to do? You know, it sucks, but what are you going to do, right? 3 out of 10 is not an action plan. It's just the justification that everything is wrong. It's just the final straw, but it doesn't tell you how to improve, right? If you want to do jumping and you're jumping 2 meters instead of 6, you know that you should jump further, right? But if I tell you your service is 3 out of 10, how are you going to improve? Forget it, right? What you really want is a deep insight. And this is why you would do text mining. And in terms of feedback, what we saw the other day is there is a supermarket behind my house. And every time I go there, there's the meat, there's a little door, and then there's milk, cheese, and stuff. And all the employees go smoking through those little door, which means that all the disgusting fumes and smoke comes in where you purchase your meat. People don't want to buy meat there because it always stinks next to the door, right? If I give you a questionnaire that says, how do you like our shop? 3 out of 10. How do you like the prices? 6 out of 10. How do you like the employees? 8 out of 10. You would never figure out, stop smoking next to the meat, right? Because that's going to boost your sales 3 times because everybody's disgusted, right? You wouldn't figure out. So if I tell you, what did you like about the Kruger? And you're going to tell me, blah, blah, I like the honey badger, I saw 3 lions, whatever. I can really get to the root cause of things. And suppose you have 1 million people who are going to give you this information the same way they would give it to their neighbor. If you are invited for dinner at your neighbor's house and the woman is going to ask you, did you like it? And you say 3 out of 10. What does it mean? That's not how you communicate, right? So why is everybody trying to do market research with 3 out of 10, right? It's not going to tell you anything. It sucks, you know?
Because I think they've been thought into old ways of thinking with net promoter scores, which is 0 to 10.
Yes.
How do would you recommend our product? Instead of maybe these old models and even questions need to adapt to a new way of, instead of following the herd, we need to ask things in a more meaningful way. And that's why working with data scientists is important, right? Because then you're going to ask different questions to 1 to 10.
Yes, exactly. You can just ask them, what did you like? What did you not like? Right? We tested that with only 50,000 feedback statements for hotels in America. And it could pinpoint that in this area, it's too expensive. This area is dirty. Here it's too loud. Here it's cheap. Here it's nice. Here it's friendly. So you really have an action plan, right? the idea is not to figure out that everything is bad. You know that already because you're close to bankruptcy, right? The question is, what can we do to fix it? That's what you want to know. And this is where AI can help you with text mining to find topics and stuff like that. So what I want to point out is create awareness. Amazon is not going to place AI with humans typing in prices. Not going to happen. Amazon is not going to replace machines evaluating feedback with humans reading millions of posts. Not going to happen, right? So why is everybody else doing that still? That's Stone Age, right? The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. The Stone Age ended because we had a successful, better technology. That's why the Stone Age ended.
So, I mean, there's a thinking that's in exponential organizations, and that's that the smartest brains or the biggest brains actually sit outside your organization. In other words, the intelligence around your product offering normally sits with your customers or influencers. And so for us, what we see is that people need to bring into their strategy better market research. And I think that's where Peter comes in. It's so powerful because if you truly want to improve or to produce products, instead of guessing all the time, it's around having open-ended questions around what problem can we solve for you, and then using AI to unpack that information to drive in terms of the business strategy and imperatives for how you can drive more value, new products, new offerings and opportunities.
I mean, who cares what I think about database business? Nobody cares. The only relevant thing is, what are my clients thinking about this thing, right? Nobody cares about my opinion. I'm not my own client. I'm not the one who's going to pay my bills. It's my clients who are going to pay my bills. So I don't care what I think about my database business. It's only about what they think, right? That's the only relevant thing out there. Yeah. So let's get to an action plan. First of all, do it at scale, have realistic expectations, hire professionals, not amateurs, and collect data early, right? So that's the important thing. First thing is there's no such thing as AI if you have 4 rows and 1 customer. Secondly is, if you have 4 rows and 1 customers, don't expect deep insights. So it's all about data. And the second thing, the pros are going to tell you what is feasible, what is not, right? Because we've seen too often that people have 500 rows and they wanted to predict the world. You know what I mean? So it's all about data. And the second thing is, and the last thing is, collect data early. You have no idea why you would need it in 5 years. Okay?
Yeah, I think if you look at traditional market research and the benefit that it brought, the playing field changed totally. I think there needs to be much innovation happening there, much adaptation, because we're living in an adaptive world where traditional ways of doing things change totally. There's major shifts that happened in how organizations capacitate and deploy themselves in new operational models. So we're on the move. We are not sitting statically. Our business is not static, and our client is also not static or normal. Everything is in change in a fast-paced world. And therefore, it's not about market research, it's a methodology. It's about the insights. How you arrive at that insights doesn't need to be a market research methodology. And therefore, there's a huge opportunity to reinvent the market research capacity and insights capacity of big organizations and small organizations because of the new technologies. How are we going to adapt to make use of new technologies that feeds the insights that makes the strategies possible to disrupt industries, to become the new winners in your industry because of your adaptive capability?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it could be a simple insight, like everybody driving a 4-wheel drive has never gone off-road. You know what I mean? Or everybody driving whatever tends to drive in a city. You know what I mean? You can simply, it doesn't have to be something super major. It could be something very simple, like people are driving an SUV. Where are they? Are they in a rural area? Are they outside? Are they more in the capital? Are they more in the smaller cities? So why would you put up an SUV advertisement in an area where you know you're not going to sell anything? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that could be interesting. And also you should think about your clients. I was flying home the other day, last year, from Germany. And a guy who was building up supermarkets for a huge retailer told me he got a marketing letter from a car maker, and it read, he turned 60, and the car maker said, wrote him a letter because he was 60, and said, "You have turned 60 and you're surely planning to buy a car for the last time. We have very nice special offerings for blah, blah, blah. You're surely going to plan to buy a car for the last time." Why are you going to tell a 60-year-old that he's going to die, basically, right? So maybe they should have used some advanced technology to figure out that that's not a good idea, right? Or just common sense, right?
Absolutely.
Could have done the opposite. Hans, I know that you've still got some of the way in your presentation. There's been a couple of questions in the Q&A. Yes. Do we want to just go through one or two of them?
Yes, sure.
Just to get, because there are people who have participated. Kedleko from Pretoria, quick Q is put it in a question, and really it's, you know, are the presentations going to be shared? Yes, definitely they are going to be shared. Also, Lawrence Coombs, who is considering, and he asked a question, considering that we are still in the growth curve of understanding data and gathering data, it still surprises us what we find, and thus get good direction to change focus to drive something like profit. Do we foresee that we will eventually reach a plateau for data intelligence, growth, and become sterile as humans will be reacting exactly by the way we predict them to based on data?
Thank you for showing up, Lawrence. I spoke to him yesterday. Awesome guy, by the way. So if you need anything in the area of Oracle Forums or Apex, this is the guy to talk to, by the way. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe. But I think humans are by definition unpredictable. I know that. I was married for 7 years, and I can tell you there is a random component in some people. I can promise you. So let's see. I don't know where it takes. If I only knew, I don't know. But what I do know is that it's going to be more important. What I don't know is what's going to happen, because we don't know what the next revolution is going to be. I mean, it could be something completely unforeseeable.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. The first airplane was flown, I think it was 1903. And from the first flight, which was, I think, 12 meters, to the first military application was 11 years. And this is aviation, this is hardware. So you see how fast disruptive changes can happen. From the first manned flight, which was 12 years, to the first military application of aviation was 11 years. In 1914, I believe, they flew the first reconnaissance planes. So that's how quickly things are. And that was in 1903. Just imagine what could happen these days with all the technology, you know?
I think it's exponentially getting quicker, isn't it, that curve, which you showed already, the organizations, the change in top companies. Fiona Wakeland was asking, how do you encourage clients to fill in questionnaires that require engagement and comment? And she was saying, often people are so busy that they don't have the time to answer open-ended questions. I don't know, Hans, Peter, you probably can both answer that.
I think the question is, from my side, if I want to make you do something, maybe that's the wrong approach already. How can I make it enjoyable to you? Because when do I fill out the questionnaire? When I'm really, really angry, you know, when something is really horrible, this is when you fill out the questionnaire. When something is really, really nice, or you fill it out when you're really, really bored, or when you get something for that.
I was going to say that.
It's a question of incentives, in my judgment.
Incentives, I wrote that down, yeah.
It's really a challenging part of the traditional market research process. However, I think before you get, if you can use AI and observation of data that's already available, maybe it will replace the traditional questionnaire. One, because observation is much more accurate than asking a question. My first comment. Second comment, we started to do value discussions with experts in our industry that knows the industry, that lived in the industry, and that actually understand the dynamics of the industry, or super customers, people that are really understanding it from a customer perspective. Then we're talking about the value discussion. We spent an hour and a half with very targeted individuals, and then you design from there how you're going to collect detailed data. Rather than just rolling out the next massive questionnaire set, where you actually, in some cases, make people negative towards the brand, because you are bothering them and you are harassing them to ask a questionnaire and respond to a questionnaire. There's other ways to go about. And I think that's also, if you look at disruptive insights organizations, you have to apply new technologies and incentivize in new ways. So you need a redesign as well, how you collect insights.
We saw a case, University of Salzburg, I believe that's where Mozart comes from. What they did is they cross-checked news coverage with Twitter coverage. If your house is flooded, if your house is burning because of the volcano, you're going to share it on social media. You know where it is, you know what's going on, etc. And actually compared media coverage and government and police awareness of critical areas with what's going on social media. And you see there is an overlap, that there are areas where something bad happened, and you know from social media rather than from the emergency department. Yes. Right? Because if your house is just flowing down the river, you're going to tell somebody, right?
Yeah.
So even for emergency stuff, it's quite valuable.
Yes.
I want to just go on to the next question from Stephen Lim. He said, it sounds like big, obviously data will become bigger, more monopolistic behavior in market. How can we, the SMEs, make use of this at scale, i.e. help them compete and even survive in this current environment?
There's a lot of public data available, which you can download and make use of. Also, you can crawl the web and just get feedback from there. If you're running, let's say, a small hotel, let's say, Booking.com has the feedback for you, about you, stuff like that. So you can try to hook up to existing data sets. It doesn't mean you have to create them all on your own. Of course, if you're running a small shop, you will never have the insights a retailer is going to have. That's for sure. And you're going to find the data anyway. But for some clients, you can figure out, for example, in New York, Uber put out, I think, data for 1.1 billion taxi rides in Manhattan. If you're running a small taxi company, I mean, that might be useful to you, right?
So I think also it's wanting to get that info, go on to that Airbnb and those sorts of platforms. So there's things like Hello Peter that will tell you how your customer service is, but it depends your appetite to improve versus if you want to find that feedback. It's out there.
Yes. In many cases, of course, there might not be feedback on pipeline welding machines, but certainly about something more humble.
So Amanda Lotheringen said, collect data early. How do you know what to collect and how?
You don't. Just collect what you got. Don't throw anything away if it's reasonably feasible.
So the beauty is not to go with preconceived ideas, in fact.
Yes, because 20 years ago, who would have thought that autonomous driving is going to come? And suppose you had tracking data for 20 years, you would figure out where could you put gas stations, where could you put whatever, etc. So if it's reasonably feasible to store, you don't know what you're going to need it for. Right? No idea. I mean, I don't, you know.
I mean, you were talking about your holiday, and you're saying that your highlight was not anything they advertised.
Exactly.
It was in fact.
Exactly. I was bush flying this year in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, and Botswana. So we're flying around with a small bush plane. And the main attraction was the honey badger.
And that wasn't even on the list.
If you gave me a questionnaire that says, which animal did you like most? Leopards, lions, elephants, or giraffes? Where's the honey badger? The most vicious animal on the face of this planet, by the way.
So we can do some honey badger tours. So Amanda had another question.
I don't know.
So Amanda had another question, and she was saying, and from whom? From whom do you get the data? Well, it's potential customers, I'd imagine, your existing customers and potential. But she was saying segmentation of target groups and messages is what we struggle with. She struggles with getting the segmentation of the target groups and the messages. And our mandate as a government agency, I'm not sure which agency you're from, Amanda, but her mandate as a government agency is to regulate companies and intellectual property. And are very wide.
Well, we have to look at the data and see how it works and how we do that. The way we usually go about it is we offer really, really cheap assessments. So we go to clients and say, okay, show me what you got. Open question, show me what you got. Don't tell me anything, just show me what you got, tell me what you're doing, and then we work out an action plan. Because if you don't have this trained eye on what is feasible, people are really struggling to envision what's possible. Because they know their ways, they know the process ways better than I do, but they lack the eye for the data. So what we do is a really cheap assessment. We tell them, okay, my friend, show me what we got, and I'm going to show you what you could collect, what might be feasible, what's going to work, what's not going to work. So that's one thing we offer to clients pretty much immediately, is to give them the chance to just show me what you got. Let's have an open discussion for half a day or 2 days, whatever it is, and then see what is feasible. And this segmentation thing would be perfectly one thing. The question is, what do you want to achieve? The only question is, what's the outcome? In this case, it's messaging, right? But it could be anything, you know?
But also, I mean, I was thinking there is that if she's looking for intellectual property rights, a good place to start would be like the court of law, to see what cases has come up, what disputes has come up. So where someone has a problem, that could probably be the first place, and then engaging with those people in those different areas.
I think the hardest data set I've ever seen is patents. Because the patent does not say you're not allowed to use a mouse click. The patent says a plastic device with metal components inside attached to a cable lying on the disk is under circumstances, whatever. It doesn't say light bulb. It says, you know what I mean? So that's the most horrible data set I've seen in my life.
So I mean, Hans, we were talking earlier and we were saying, how do we help organizations? And one of the things that you've offered is that you've offered to actually do an assessment for companies. And so maybe it's important to put at this point that if they reach out to Anita or to yourself, and that you can do it through us if you want, and you're wanting an assessment that you know, it takes like a day, but it will give you that data set back and help you to know where to look. So
open conversation. What are you doing? What is there? How can we make sense of that? Let's just talk, you know?
But it's important, right? Because you'll be able to look at that data of theirs through that assessment and really give them feedback in a reporting way, and where the opportunities are and how they can get better information.
Yeah, and usually the outcome is completely unexpected. I mean, I can tell you the outcome is usually completely unexpected. I mean, when I was dealing with this data set about those water plants in Guatemala, right? I expected that it would be, I don't know, about maintenance of the turbines or something like that. But it was actually about selling, you know, about the fluctuations on the electricity price, you know. That was the thing, you know. Nobody cared about maintenance because those things don't break. You know what I mean? For sure. And exactly. So it's usually the outcome might not be what people expect, but it's usually cooler than what they expect, from my judgment. Of course, not for everybody, but let's talk. Open discussion. That's the only way to go.
And Peter, you'd be able to help them in terms of raising funding and creating business opportunities from a strategic point of view as well, right?
Yeah, I think we are really in a time because of this adaptive capability that everybody is seeking, the changing of business models. There was never a time in the near history, past history, that companies reacted like that. So suddenly innovation is very important. So strategic innovation as well. So we work in that space. And I think what Hans said, you must go in with an open mind into situations, an inquisitive mind, to really try to frame the problems of industry and then work back from the problem to find the data solution, if there's a data solution. And you can even think about many industries, and you will always find something that's hiding there as a gem, as a pot of gold for everybody to save, because they can see and understand better and detect better. If you take something like the rivers, you know, climate is a big issue these days. If you take the rivers in South Africa, that because of maintenance and other problems is very polluted currently, the water. If you can have sensors and detectors and at bridges, for example, you have the IoT, can you imagine what you can do with data to get these rivers clean? Because you would immediately pick up where the next pollution,
Contamination.
contamination. If you look at things like poaching, that's huge crime in South Africa. In crime in general, you can just imagine how Hans's type of solutions can bring competitive advantage to many organizations that works in the security cluster. You know, it's not only a government, it's also a lot of private companies that works in the, what's the value of that to insurance companies? It's huge. We're talking about billions of dollars and rands that can be saved or made because you bring the correct data solution.
I hear you. So, I mean, Peter and Hans, I think that what I'm hearing, and certainly it came a question from maybe Vernon that articulates the situation that we find ourselves in, and maybe it comes up in the poll as well. The poll is saying that people are looking or haven't done anything about AI. It's clear that the evidence is overwhelming, the benefits, the profitability, the cost reductions, the efficiencies. So Vernon says, can you suggest the best process, in your opinion, to be followed when implementing AI in your organization?
Let's talk first and be open. That's the best way. Because we don't know what the goal is going to be. Talk first. Let's talk first and see what's there. Open discussion, that's the best process, and get it from there. I give you one more example. Vienna city government, 2 million people, and they have applications for construction. And when people file for construction permits, everybody makes mistakes. So they use image recognition and everything to read the construction plans, to pre-filter them so that the humans don't have to check them. They can send it back earlier and faster and pre-filter them that this is obviously broken, that's not going to work, etc. So that you save on bureaucrats, basically.
So, Oloise Esan is asking, what are the ethical issues facing big data?
That's a hard one. That's a hard one. It depends on the data set. There's surely nothing wrong with analyzing weather data, but maybe there's a lot of things wrong if you want to trade organs, right?
Okay. So there's big ethical issues. That's what they're struggling with, I think, in the States as well, is how do you decide that? And so, yeah. And then Jacko Snyman is asking, is it fair to say that no data is useless?
Yes.
The more data you have, the better your decision-making can be.
Yes.
And are there guidelines to ensure how you save data for easy use, like format, type, etc.?
Format type is a secondary concern. It has to be reasonably readable.
Okay.
Depends
and what does that
totally
mean?
On the question what it is. Yeah.
So it's reasonably readable is the issue. And so we have a couple of anonymous questions. Maybe just want to go through them quickly. How does one create a significant data set?
Oh, depends on which industry you are. Maybe there is no significant data set, maybe there is. It totally depends on the industry. If you're a single lawyer with 3 clients a day, no such thing as a significant data set.
But you can look outside your organization, right?
Yeah, depends on, yeah, but it's a really, it's an individual thing.
Yeah.
Case per case.
Okay. And then Lucas is asking, hi Hans, how do you handle missing data? And what is the biggest data set you processed? And how did you do it?
Missing data, that's the hard thing. The question is it missing data because it's just missing, or is it missing data you want to reproduce, meaning filling the gaps? Or is it missing data because of whatever reason? If I remember correctly, the biggest data set I was processing personally was something in the magnitude of 500 terabytes. Measurement data for gearboxes.
Okay. I know that there's other questions, and I think we've really run out of time already. So I just want to thank everybody for participating. If you've got other questions, please send it to us. We'll forward it on to Hans and Peter. Peter, thank you very much for joining us for this session. It was really great to get your feedback and insights, and best of luck. And Hans, thank you again for your ability to answer all these hard questions. Amanda, we'll forward on those answers to Hans and Peter. Thank you all very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
And please, if you got questions, please don't hesitate to send them to Rolf. I will answer them thoroughly.
Yeah.
So that's very much appreciated. So please just send anything you got. I will go through it instantly, basically. And if anything is unclear or if anything comes to your mind, just please get in touch with Rolf. He's going to collect it all and send it to Peter or to me, and we're going to take proper care of that. And as I said, if anybody wants us to look at your data or so, just reach out to Rolf, Peter, Unita, or me, and we're going to take care of you as fast as we can.
Brilliant.
You're very welcome. Any question, don't even think twice. Ask the questions. We all have to reinvent and adapt.
By the way, there's a machine learning training course online on September 14th. It's done by one of our primary machine learning experts who used to work for the World Bank. So if you're interested, also get in touch and maybe sign up. There is more information on our website. As Ralph said, the presentation is readily available. And yeah, thank you for your attention. And have a nice day, and many greetings from sunny Europe.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for participating. We'll put up the chats. We'll put up the video, but we'll also put up the link to the training, and to, if you're looking for an assessment, a company assessment, we'll send up that as well. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.